This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and if you are listening for the first time, thank you for joining us and listening to our podcast. WeatherWorks is a private forecasting company located in Hackettstown, New Jersey, but our services stretch across the entire United States. And as always, joining me here in the Weather Lounge is my well-groomed co-host, meteorologist Mike Mahalik. Hey there, Mike.
Brad. Well-groomed? What am I, a dog?
I don't know. I always say something really nice, so I figured, yeah, you always get that nice, you always got the nice, well-groomed beard, and it's.
Well,
I figured
today I didn't even shave. I look terrible, but
well, we can't see anything in the podcast. I thought
That's
I'd
right.
throw a little change in there that we normally, always talk about.
Well, I guess since you mentioned well-groomed, I guess that sort of kind of goes into our next guest because we have a landscaping and lawn care
Yeah.
professional with us today.
Yeah, we are. They groom the grasses and the
Right.
landscaping and things like that.
So maybe subconsciously you were thinking about this grooming the lawn or something like
Well,
that.
I did get to finally see you after this whole long thing too, a couple of weeks ago. So you look well groomed. So that's kind of what. Anyway, hey, we got a good guest. Yes, our guest today is Zech Strauser, correct?
Yeah, Zech Strauser and of Strauser's Nature's Helpers, and he's going to be here to talk about the entire green industry, from landscaping projects to lawn care, to how he dealt with the impacts of COVID and his staffing and all that, and how he works through everything. And we're also going to talk a little bit about snow and ice removal too, because he does that. So we have a lot of good stuff to talk to Zech about. And I do have a little bit of a background here. Before being at WeatherWorks, I was in the landscaping industry, so I think I can relate a little bit with him.
Yeah, it's nice that we're getting into the spring and summertime months now, and businesses, yeah, they probably do a good portion of their, I guess, not equity, a lot of their, yeah, in the wintertime. But yeah, they stay year round, and that's great because there's a lot of things that happen, in the Northeast in the summertime, of course, in the spring, and you need to mow grass and things like that. And like you said, it's a whole different ball game. So like a complete 180 compared to December, January, February.
All right, Brad. Well, let's not talk too much longer, and let's take it to break real quick, and we'll be back with Zech.
Have you ever needed weather data for a snow removal contract? How about a slip and fall incident? Searching for the information online may sound simple enough, however, it can be tedious and difficult. Good news! Our data and stats team can simplify the process. We'll find any weather information from daily rainfall and snowfall totals to hourly temperatures and seasonal averages. On the legal side, our forensic department routinely produces certified reports by meteorologists, assessing the weather conditions on and around accident dates. So don't waste your valuable time. Give WeatherWorks a call today at 908-850-8600 or email us at data@weatherworksinc.com. Remember, when you think weather, think WeatherWorks.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Weather Lounge. I'm meteorologist Mike Mahalik, and I'm here with my co-host Brad Miller, as usual. Brad, how you doing again?
Great. We're looking forward to another fine guest here at the Weather Lounge.
Yeah, and I think he just got on the line here, and it's Zech Strauser from Strauser's Nature's Helpers. How you doing, Zech?
Great. How you guys doing?
I'm good. So yeah, I mean, we really wanted to get a landscaper, lawn care professional on our podcast to really talk about the weather impacts to your services, and whether it's in the summer, the spring, or even in the winter. We really want to talk about these things with you, Zech, and I'm glad that you're able to be on the show today.
Yeah, awesome. I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
It's our honor to have you on there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. But I think we should start first, Zech, with how about a little bit of background about Strauser's Nature's Helpers?
We are I guess, as we call it in our industry, a lot of times, full service landscape management, snow management, where we're taking care of predominantly commercial grounds and/or multi-unit housing like HOA apartment complexes and resorts and so forth, but more of a commercial style property where we take care of their grounds year round, snow and landscape. Started the company in the Poconos, beautiful Poconos of Pennsylvania, and have over the last handful of years, we've kind of branched into the beautiful area of Lancaster County and down into Lehigh Valley and Northampton County also. So we're about anywhere from 50 to 60 employees and anywhere from 20 to 25 contractors, depending on what specialty services they offer that we don't. So, and we've been in business 23 years as of this year, I believe. Yeah.
Awesome. And I got to say, I feel like I've seen your trucks around my area because I live down the Lehigh Valley, and I know there's a particular 55 and older community that I feel like you've been in
Yep.
near where I am.
There's a very good chance. Actually, in Lehigh Valley, that's probably predominantly, when you combine them all up, there's probably a couple thousand units that we take care of in the sense of a handful of communities. Yep, there's probably a good chance. White trucks with brown letters.
Yeah, I've seen Strousers all around Stroudsburg, and I'm up here around the Scioto, Broadheadsville area, and also now you said you reached down to Lancaster. I went to college at Millersville, so that's where I got
Okay.
my
Yeah.
meteorology degree.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I think it's a fitting time for us to actually be on your podcast. I think primarily from the winter we just went through. That was a pretty historic winter for us in the sense of snow removal.
It's like we went from 0 to 100 within like 2 weeks, basically.
It was. I think we're still recovering from it.
Well, you know, hey, since we're on the snow topic, we could just skip right to there if we want to talk about after the winter here. But yeah, I mean, like Brad said, I mean, yes, we had some snow in December. I mean, there was a pretty big storm in the middle of December, but man, it really kicked into high gear once we got to the end of January and through February. It seemed like there was snow every other day, plus there was a massive, 2 to 3 foot type
Yeah.
storm that hit eastern Pennsylvania and parts of northwest New Jersey. So yeah, I mean, why don't we go through that a little bit? So you're saying you're recovering still a little bit. So what do you mean by you're still recovering? What has the impacts been on your business?
I guess it would probably be on the personnel, just from the standpoint of a long hard winter will definitely kind of test the managers, test the frontline workers. We'll call that the 1 out of 10 years. When you have the 1 out of 10 year events, you basically will test everyone. And I think when you kind of go right into the spring into landscape services, generally landscapers want a quiet winter, and snow only guys want a quiet, enjoy the quiet summer so they can actually work on snow. And I think one of the challenges of our industry is that there are two different seasons, landscape and snow. And kind of keeping in the winter, we need to be working on key initiatives for landscape, and in the summer, we need to be working on key initiatives for snow. And when you're busy in both of them, it's hard to stay out front of your prep. So I think just kind of going through a hard working winter and then everyone just rushing right into spring, it can kind of turn you into a 13-month type of field versus 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that. I know when I was working in landscaping and we did the snow removal, I was always hoping for not much action during the winter. I mean, yeah, I wanted a snowstorm here and there, but if I was out working, 24 hours straight And there was a couple of those big time events. I wanted that break, but you just didn't get it when you had to start preparing for the spring and getting your equipment back together.
Yeah, and I think it's that preparation. Like I think the front line, the doers in the field, I don't know if it necessarily impacts them as much. I think it's the middle management that need to be working on preparation for that upcoming season. That when you're in the fight of the snow events one after another, you don't really get that break to be like, oh, let me make sure my mulch is on order, make sure that the equipment's coming in at the right time. So I think it's if you're an operator, you're going to work 10 to 20 hours a week on average in snow, and then you go home and you kind of relax part time in the winter. But for the managers, they're stuck in the sense of invoicing or whatever they're doing, getting ready for the next snow event, right? So,
I would imagine
but
you're. I was going to say I would
go ahead.
imagine your transition from fall to winter is a lot easier than a transition from winter into spring, because you're kind of overlapping two seasons that one wants to end pretty quickly, but you want to get right into the other one. As the fall, it kind of slowly goes into winter, if you will. Even up here, I mean, I would imagine you're probably still doing a lot of landscaping well into November before the real first snow comes in.
Yeah, and I can see how you would think it's spring is harder than fall, but my opinion at least is it's actually
Huh.
reverse. It's because here's the thing, you have to be ready for snow, but you don't know when it's going to snow. You have to be ready for landscape. You pretty much know when you're you're going you pretty much know when the trees are going to bloom. You pretty much know when the first grass cut happens April 20th. Whether you like it or not, I mean it could dump on April 1st, it melts. You're still cutting grass on April 20th. So there's a lot more predictability in the spring than there is in the fall, because you have to be ready basically once October
I was gonna
1
say, you could be
hits, and
removing
then
snow on Halloween. Yeah.
yeah, you're on your tippy toes basically until you get that first event. And like I always say, they only remember the first and last event, right? So you better be ready. So I think and we pretty much have every service on top of each other through the months of September to December, and that's the most challenge for us.
Yeah, I think Brad might have gotten a little bit of that idea, because I mean a lot of times in the spring we get a lot of calls from our clients, from our storm alert clients, saying like, "Hey, is winter over? Can we take those plows off? Can we switch our trucks around, get the spreaders off the back?" So maybe that's where he's getting that connotation, because I know we do have a lot of questions like that when the springtime hits, or at least late winter.
Yeah, it's hey, they're both really. I don't even know if we could even say which is harder. I think they both have their hard points, right? And but for us, we've always called fall spring times two. That's kind of been my
That
joke.
works.
But yeah, so it was a wild year. I don't even know our event count or inch count, to be honest, at this point. But I think our inch count superseded averages, obviously. But I don't think our event count did supersede by much because of those two Whopper events, December, February. So I think we're probably at like 60, say, plus inches. And then we're probably still under 20 events a year or somewhere right
Yeah,
around
we
it.
probably got 70% of our snow just from those two storms, and then all the other little
Exactly.
ones added up.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're pretty much right on target, because I think Allentown had somewhere in the mid to upper 50s as far as inches
Yeah.
of
But
snowfall. I
probably
think,
only what, 14, 15 events or something, right?
right, and then
And then March had hardly anything, really.
Right.
right, which was a crazy flip of everything. But that's what happens when all that cold air gets bottled up in Canada, and then once it's there and doesn't want
By
to.
that point, it could stay in Antarctica for the rest of ever, and we wouldn't care.
Yeah, I think Allentown actually had more snow in April than it did in March this year, which was odd. I mean, that's just one of those odd years. It's just crazy. It
Yeah,
wasn't a lot in
but
April, but it was more than March, which is hard to believe.
so in the winter, Zach, how do you is there a difference in the way you prepare for storms? Like, say, um, if you have maybe a 3 to 6 inch storm versus one of those big, you know, massive events.
Yes, the big massive events is really on our radar now to become the best at it that we can. And I think for a few years we kind of our guard was. It's so funny how it happens. I think what was 18 spring was the bomb cyclone, right? Those two big blizzards that hit within like a 3 week period in March, April. And then all of a sudden, you have some easier winters after that, and you kind of take your guard off the big, longer, drawn out events. Big meaning 12 inches plus. And I don't even know. I would say mostly it's not about depth, but when it hits 30 inches, it's about depth, right? It's not. Most of the time, I talk about length is one of our biggest challenges as an industry, most of the time because of staffing. And over the last year, obviously, we know that any service sector has been very difficult to stay to full capacity. And the saying of, well, let's hire extra people is funny when you can barely hire who you need initially, um, since COVID hit. So my predictions were COVID is going to open up we're going to have so many people from the restaurant industry and all these industries willing to come over to our industry. And I was the furthest thing from the truth. So it's been a very hard year for us on recruiting and then just in general to fulfill the seats that we needed to. But it's the length of the storms that I think challenge us the most in preparation. And we're starting to really kind of look at how we do that in the sense of shift work. We get a lot of hotels, and because of COVID this year, we were only allowing one person per hotel. We used to let people bunk up if it was buddies work together or something, or they felt comfortable bunking up. We would. On longer events, we get people in hotel rooms all over Pennsylvania. We sometimes get up to 40, 45 different hotel rooms. Um, so this past year, our hotel bills were very lofty. I may buy some different hotels. No, I'm joking. So I can be the on that side of the business. But I think it's planning shifts is probably one of our biggest challenges, and I think it's one of the biggest hurdles to get over in the industry to attract more people to want to work in the industry. If you talk to people, most people say, "Hey, I'll work in it." I don't know if most people, but a lot of people that say that I'll work in it. I didn't mind it, but it's just those long shifts. And this was a winter where long shifts went into another long shift. So it wasn't just one big long shift for the year, and then everyone had average events. We had probably a handful of really testing in the sense of length of events. Um, so for us to be an attractive industry, um, I think it's really trying to get people into this 12-hour shift world, 14 and 16 being long, not 14 being average and 16 being average.
Hmm.
How do we get that to be a long shift so people can get some rest and then come back refreshed? So I think how we've been trying to kind of tiptoe around that and get that better planned, but it's a pretty lofty um, thing we have ahead of us to figure out. And this year showed us that like no other.
It's interesting that you say about how you put your employees up in hotels and things like that, because we do the same thing actually here at WeatherWorks.
Oh, pre-COVID, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, exactly. Now we're more working remote in a lot of times, but yeah, we would go up in a hotel room nearby the office, and that way, we made sure that our employees can get in to do their forecast and give the services to you guys out there in the field. Um, so that's interesting you say that, but I guess then that kind of leads me into you're talking about long shifts and stuff like that. Um, the durations of the storm. So if we had to pin you down on a forecast, what do you think is the most important part of the forecast? Is it the amounts? Is it the timing? Is it the changeovers? How do you feel on that?
Start, end, and how big that gap is would probably be the first things, because I have managers that are looking at depth and figuring out a little more details, we'll say, of, I think as we've grown, maybe I'm a little less involved in, are we pre-salting, or are we going to do during salts, or, should we be salting at the end if it's going to turn to rain? But for me, if I can go as macro as I can, I'm going to go on start, end, and length of that, because I think that's where we start to plan and then communicate that to our team and then communicate that to our customer and start to build, hopefully not too much to interpret in between. So it's like expectations and then reality, everyone getting on the same page as quick as possible. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
No. I think it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, because I mean that's how you plan your staffing. I mean, you have to have at least a rough idea. Of course, sometimes the forecast changes, but at least you have an idea when everyone can sleep and get ready for the storm, and then maybe have that break in between and come back. But yeah, I would imagine that
yeah,
that's
and then it's kind of maybe number two is, how we're using product, and then how many turns we'll have on a type of property. Because we don't do one type of property, we have different turns, how many times we're going to cycle through what type of property. So I think that would kind of be the next thing that we're concerned about making decisions.
do different businesses have different sensitivity, I guess, to what is
Right. Like
removed
we
and
may
how
have
much.
we may have a factory that, or a, resort that has main roadways, or a private community with steep hills, to a hospital, to a parking deck, to the ER entrance, all different kind of priorities that need to get balanced out. When I hear about certain people that only manage one type of property, I'm like, wow, that must be like pretty awesome, because we probably have 5 different styles if you think about it. And it's just because I started in a small market in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and that market predominantly, if you're going to grow your business, you're going to service 4 or 5 or 6 different types of customers. If you're in a more built-up market, you can probably zone into 1 or 2 types.
Along those lines too, Zach. I mean, you said 23 years. This is coming up on now, right? Now, obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, but I moved to the Poconos when I was actually going through my last couple of years, last year of high school, and I mean, how much has that changed for you? I mean, this is getting a little specific for the Poconos, but how much has that changed though, just with the growth around Monroe County and really, I guess, even to the Lehigh Valley and South Central PA? I mean, the whole area has kind of been booming here the last 20 years.
I mean, yeah, for us, the Poconos is because we don't do as much residential anymore. There's definitely a residential uptick again, like there was in the 2000s. But predominantly for us, the Poconos is growing at a modest pace. But Lehigh Valley and Lancaster, where there's more construction and more growth, it seems that's more of our growing markets, if you wanted to say. The Poconos is kind of what we hold our own, if you want to say it. There's just not too much dirt getting moved around in the
I was
Poconos.
going to say it seems like it peaked a little bit, but and I think this resort area is going to take another uptick here in the next
Yeah,
few
there
years.
is. There's definitely, yeah. Definitely some uptick in resort, and then there's, I think there's, if this economy keeps moving the way it does, that has been, I think we'll see another uptick starting here. But I mean, if you go to Lehigh Valley, there's no shortage of dirt getting moved around down there.
I can totally agree with that. It seems it seems like every other day I go down a road that used to be surrounded by fields, and it's a warehouse. going up. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just the location of the highways, or
There's a
um,
lot of smell of asphalt, put it that way, because there's a lot of asphalt trucks moving around.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. So I was thinking a little bit about the residential versus the commercial thing. Now, personally, when I was doing snow removal, I was not a huge fan of residentials. I mean, I liked doing more of the, shopping centers, the warehouses, and things like that. Is there a certain way that you gravitate to, or you just kind of treat everything the same, or?
So we do a lot of residential. We just don't do single home residential. So we'll do HOAs, um, which are their own animal and their own beast. A lot of contractors are running away, shying away, don't really gravitate towards that. Um, we are continuing to stay in that market. We kind of my first big property ever was a 75 unit HOA, so it's kind of in our blood. And it's not to say it wasn't in a lot of other contractors' blood, but we just stayed there. So as we'll call it, as the industrial or the shipping facilities become more and more common, you see a lot of people gravitate towards that. But I think we're to the point where that's getting very competitive also. So we just kind of stay true to where we've serviced, which is, it's funny, we say probably about 80% of our snow removal or more in any of our customer base is people sleep there. And people go, what do you mean? I say hospitals, resorts, apartments, HOA, they sleep there. You just probably don't want to sleep at the hospital, I guess. It's probably not the best place to be sleeping. But other
No.
than that, people are sleeping there. So us being cognitive to understand that we're working around people's, you'll call it private space or place that they're trying to relax or enjoy themselves. Um, so we're a commercial residential, if you almost think of it that way.
Right. So I wanted to ask the last question on snow before we go to the green industry. So a lot of people do snow removal as a year-round business, and you do both. So what is the big preparation? Like what is the most important preparation you take during the green season transitioning into the winter?
Right. So right now we're working on renewals contracts. Um, we are looking at future purchases, and/or ordering, and/or I mean, I'm not as proactive that I'm receiving anything right now in the sense of equipment or materials, but we will be doing our orders in the next couple weeks here, to be able to make sure. And that's a whole nother discussion almost. We could talk on just procuring materials, and inventory is just such a nightmare over the last year. But ultimately, I probably should have already done that if I really wanted a new truck by this fall. But so and then it's by midsummer, it's looking for the renewals to be secured, looking for us to kind of look at our existing business that we have. Is that starting to get locked down? Are we starting to look at our routes by September 1st, kind of feeling like our existing business is kind of in its little cocoon and we know how we're going to handle that? Then August, September, it's kind of a later leads where new business gets entertained. And the reason why I say entertained is because we're not a open the door and advertise for a bunch of snow removal and grow 50%. We are a 10 to 20% growth oriented snow company. That's it. Um, it's a it's a business that you don't get many chances to mess up, right? So you do a good job and you take on customers that you can handle. If you can't handle it, don't take it on.
Right. Now, do you make any adjustments, like say in September or something, we come out with a forecast for you for the winter that says, hey, it looks like it's going to be a really busy winter. Does that make a big impact on how you prepare?
Um, I guess that would be if someone wanted to switch their style of contract from fixed to pay as you go, or in a new sales meeting maybe. Um, and I do probably 50% of the snow sales myself. So I can keep the averages in my head. I kind of know where we're at on the last 10 years. So I can say, from what I can tell, if you look at averages, it's gonna be a more active winter. Before this winter, I said we've had 2 mild winters. It's coming. It's probably going to be this year. And sure enough, it was, right?
Absolutely.
Normally, 2 active winters follow each other also. So that average is kind of in place when you look at the 10-year. I mean, I use your guys, I give you a little bit of a plug here. I use your 10-year averages all the time. That's like my go-to on a lot. Kind of helps me. I look at the whole schematics all the time. How many inches, how many events, what type of events. And yes and no. I mean, I think ultimately it's in a new sales world discussion, or if someone's looking to change what style contract they had.
Well, I think we said just about enough about winter, right,
Yeah, I
Brad?
was just gonna say. I was just gonna say as we wrap up the winter time part. Now, where does your overlap come in with the green industry? Do you have a lot of common clients on your end, or is it a lot of?
Yeah, it's about 1 for 1. It's basically, um, I mean, we have some. We have where a health systems, we take care of their hangar, and where the medevac helicopter takes off, and we don't mow that, right? So there's very select. So most of it is green and white are together.
So switching gears over to the green industry, obviously in the wintertime, our forecasts are very important as far as, the start and end times of the storm, how much is going to fall, what type of precipitation you're looking at, to how you plan. Same thing sort of in the summer here, where we're looking at, you know, how much rain we're going to be getting, how that changes your plans, and how does that all come into it with the weather aspect?
Well, like I think we were chatting small talk before we got started, and what you said, I said it's looking pretty dry out there, huh? And you said, yeah, it's looking like we could get some rain. Hopefully, we get some rain Saturday. And what was funny is I was saying, no, I hope it doesn't. And it's like, why would the landscaper not want rain? And I think just a little dry, or just a little below or right around average is just good for us. We don't want too much rain. And right now we could take a little slowdown on the turf and welcome that, because normally it won't slow down till almost July. And if we can get a little slowdown right now, we'll use it, because we have flowers starting this week. Mulching is still going on, so there's still a heavy workload to get done. So, but I don't know if I answered your question.
That's okay.
Oh, I guess a lot of rain though would basically mean you got to mow more.
Yeah, a lot of rain. A lot of rain. We don't want a lot of rain. I always say rain once every like Friday night. It could rain a little, an inch or two Friday night, and then we're
Right,
good. Dries out over the weekend.
right. Now, in your business, do you see is the lawn care and the landscaping aspects, are they about equal, or do you do generally more lawn care, or does it just kind of depend on, hey, it hasn't rained a lot, so let's build some walls or something like that?
No, we 80% of our business is routine property maintenance, whether it's, full gamut, taking care of the turf, the beds, the trees, the shrubs, right? And then the rest would be one-time projects, and a lot of those are on our existing clients' properties. We do some one-off installation work also, but most of it's through the routine care of that property. If it doesn't rain a lot, this year, being with staffing challenges, we are welcoming And my staff would probably welcome not working 58 hours a week. So they'll take 48 and be happy.
Right. Now, I mean, I know you're saying, oh, if it's a little bit too dry, but I mean, obviously we went to like, a lot of heat and into a drought, that's something you
Yeah,
wouldn't want to
that's
be looking for.
no. We don't want everything to get like burnt and scorched. And you know what's weird? I was on the way to the office this morning, like just down in Lehigh Valley. It dries up really fast down there. The clay soils. It's either mushy and mucky or it's dry. There's like no sweet spot almost, and it's going to the dry, barren, hard ground already. And it's what May 20. What's the 21st? So it's at least a month earlier than normal going into that zone. And when you look at this 10-day, what do you see? Not much.
Right. Yeah.
And you're getting like July temperatures on top of it.
I know. I did notice that recently it's been getting a bit dry. Now we're recording this on May 21st. So, um, I know there's some talk about it getting a little bit more wetter as we head into June. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But a lot of guys that I've talked to, we talked to a few that deal with turf management. They're a little bit concerned too about wind at times. When it comes to putting down fertilizers, things
Yep.
like that. Do you find that being a big issue with you?
I mean, it is for us. Drift is an important thing to make sure that either if it's granular, you're getting it cleaned up. If you do have the drift, and liquid is harder to control, right? So um, one of our big amounts of liquid is when we're spot spraying around plant material for weeds in beds. So, and believe it or not, I think we're not quite sure, but we just had a picture sent to us with 2 or 3 plants that looked like it might have got some drift. So we are we are perfect, right? So, and it does seem like it's been a very windy spring, doesn't it? I mean, on top of this dry, it's pretty windy every day.
There has been a lot of wind events. I live on top of a hill basically, so it seems like it's always windy at my house. But there was some pretty good, high wind
Yeah,
events.
March and April, yeah, even early May, there was a good amount of wind around the Northeast.
Wind, the biggest variable for us is weather. The second is humans, right? So
Right.
we're in the weather and the human business, two very unpredictable. Well, but you can definitely work off averages, right? But other than that, there's a lot of moving unpredictableness that you need to work with. So it's weather and humans.
And this year was probably one of the tougher ones because you had a human impact with the COVID situation. Which I'm actually surprised that you said you didn't get a lot of people coming from other, restaurant industries or something that was more indoors to outdoors because, I mean, personally, when I was doing landscaping, I didn't mind it at all. I had a fine.
We got some, but I painted this picture of, oh, the heavens have opened. In that sense, I knew that it was a very dark and grim world, but I said, what can I find as a positive out of this? And I said, well, for my business, we aren't shut down, and maybe we can get the resources. And it just never really. We did get some, but it just never really. And what where I think COVID, just to touch on where COVID's hitting us now versus rehash anything that's went on over the last year. If our industry is being affected very hard this year. I'm not saying we weren't affected last year. It's kind of like the best example I can have is restaurants were shut down last year. This year, it's whatever business you're in. It's like last year was about being shut down or staying open. That's kind of how you graded your difficulties. This year, it's like when you're open, there's this underlining difficulty on supplies, being able to get it. I think people kind of have this, where we were almost being drowned underwater, and now we're all kind of gasping for air and flailing around in the water concept. So there's just a lot of really weird, just like behaviors out of people right now, and people just kind of trying to keep everyone calmed down on. Uh, it's really hard to
I think it
explain.
seems like everyone's fuse is real short, and I don't know if that's because last year at this time, I think the biggest issue was there was so much uncertainty. We didn't know what the heck was going to be going on here. At least now, granted, it's we're trying to come out of it, but at least we have some direction as humans, and really, I guess, in business nature and the business going forward into the summer, we kind of know where we're gonna at least get to now, instead of whoa, what's gonna happen here the next year, and that I think people, like you said, Zach, are just very. It was just there was too much uncertainty, I think, in everyone's life.
It's like the shock wave is hitting now or something.
It's
And
true.
here's the challenge: the customer, or if we're getting through this, statements made, well, we should be through it and everything should get back to normal. It's gonna, like, if we're getting through it without that debate, let's just say we're getting through it, and then now too, well, it's going to be a year or two of aftershock. That if, I guess, the people that can figure that out the best, the quickest, are going to win, because I hate being the one telling customers, well, with COVID, and they're saying, I don't want to hear about that anymore. And we say, I know, but when people are making pretty good unemployment money, it's hard to attract them to come to work. It's
No,
just
I
the
know what you're saying.
reality. We
Yeah,
should
I mean,
probably not talk about that much more because it'll get into politics. But
Politics, yeah.
yeah,
um,
let's try to keep that out of the conversation, because I know it's very binary on that. But I think it might be that some people are just unsure about what type of where they want to put themselves, um, because the COVID, like Brad said, brought up so much uncertainty about what you were doing, if you had to you know be careful about going out to eat, or careful about doing whatever you were doing.
Be careful about spending money, and who what you're gonna.
Yeah, and now maybe people are just thinking like, well, I should really be careful about what job I choose, or what it's going to involve. But for me, I would say that if you're going to be in an outside job like yours, um,
boom,
pr-
you said it.
I mean, I would be like, well, I have about the least amount of chance of contracting a virus if I'm outside with the wind blowing, or sitting on a lawnmower, or weed whacking, or whatever I might be. And I think I actually said that years ago when they had the, oh, what was it, swine flu or H1N1 or whatever it was. I was like, well, I'm out here in the wide open. I don't know how I'm going to get it unless the guy in the truck has it, you know. So
Outdoors has always been one of the best places for humans to be, and now I think, if you, I don't know, if you pick the top three greatest things that happened through COVID, um, definitely one of the top three has to be people's interest in the outdoors. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have went to some public hiking locations and you've seen how busy the trails are. Um, Boy, if you're REI or one of those outdoor sales company selling product, you probably don't have anything on the shelves. It's an amazing time to see everyone. So, for our industry, we've been really able to lean on, the concept it's better outdoors, right? So we have got a few people from the warehouse industry that saying, look, I'm scratching at the walls of this warehouse. I want to get outside and
Yeah,
work. So,
mhm.
I think bikes and
and
kayaks were like the highest, were the biggest items that you couldn't find last summer. I mean, probably in the end of this summer too.
I bought my wife a kayak for Christmas, and she can't find a rack to get it on the top of her car. They're all sold out until like fall time or
Yeah, that's
something.
what I mean. It's crazy. It's like, well, I have a kayak now, but how do I transport it?
So we're just gonna put a blanket up there and some straps.
Yeah. Well, I totally look. I'll be honest. Last year I took up mountain biking.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
yeah.
Never did it. But then I was like, you know what? I have a state park right nearby, Jacobsburg,
Yep. Beautiful
and
place. Yeah.
I'm like, I could drive to it on a bike and hit the trails. And I was just like, well, what better way? Just get out here and do some mountain biking. It seems like fun. Other than climbing those hills and getting over rocks and roots and things like that. But
No, Jacobsburg's a great place to get into mountain biking. It's pretty forgiving, It's like a
yeah, it's not too
nice place.
terrible
I've
for you.
I've biked there a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that with the outdoor activities. Now Brad did some research. He was just looking at your site a little bit. He saw some interesting blogs that he wanted to ask you about, right, Brad?
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up because we can probably kind of wrap this up here shortly. But yeah, Zach, I guess everyone's not only in the green industry on the landscaping side, but getting into the greener, you know, not going with the fossil fuels going forward. Cars are making that adjustment, and who knows, in 20 years it may be all electric. But you mentioned something on your blog about eco equipment.
hmm So the entire industry, we'll say from the landscape side right now, I think the biggest initiative in the snow industry on the eco side is really chlorides and using salts correctly. Um, I'd say at a hierarchy, that's the kind of the number one battle cry right now for the snow industry to start working on, if not start to solve. There's some pretty grim stats if we continue to use salt the way we are for our drinking water. So that's at the hierarchy of landscape or snow. Sorry, we're embarking on liquids. We hope to release liquids this year in our company, which definitely decreases salt usage. But on a landscape side, I think if you just went to the traditional everyday, not organic lawn care, that's been around, and I think that's getting some traction finally. But what's the most innovative right now is probably electric and autonomous. Those two words together are basically going to storm the industry. It's starting as we speak. It's been around, so it'd be like a couple years back when we all started having these big phones in our hands, and we started, let's just say 5 years ago, when everyone pretty much found these things in their hands full time, using them all the time. We said, oh man, how did these things take our life over? Well, it was 25 years ago that we all had phones, but we just didn't really think of it the way they're actually working for us now. And it's the same thing with robotics in the mowing industry, which is there's been small robotics around for 20 years in mowing. And in other countries, Europe, it's been much more popular than here. But it's storming the industry as we speak. The race is on. And we're actually one of three companies right now in the country that are deploying robotics that bolt on to our existing mowers, that take over the operation of our existing mower. So we're working with a really unique company out of California right now. Actually, today in Lehigh Valley, we have mower right now programming routes as we speak. So, and that's transforming into electric. So we were running propane. It's becoming harder and harder to run propane as an ecological, just because I think most people are putting their resources behind electric right now. Um, so that's the biggest. And then, there's a ton of other things, native plants and decreasing lawn space and decreasing chemical and herbicides. But I think the biggest thing that's kind of storming across the industry right now is autonomous and electric.
So I gotta ask you about the autonomous and robotic type thing, and you're talking about cutting lawns. Are you talking about like something remote control that somebody controls, or are you talking about actually,
Both,
you know, it's just doing
both.
its own thing?
So it's being programmed by humans. to then the computer takes over your program, right? So we actually physically right now will program it. Say we do the first, so it's going to do what we do, and then it'll repeat, and then it'll start to build its own brain and start to come up with best practices. And this year, because we're in the beta testing, is part with this company, which is we have we'll call it a chauffeur or a yeah, I guess that would be the best. Um, what's the people that go to dances with the kids to make sure the kids stay in check?
Chaperone.
Chaperone, right? Why am I? So there's a chaperone for the mower that can stay within that 100-yard distance. That if something goes down weird, they can hit it. But it's 360 camera. These mowers are going to be able to, you're going to be able to, so the future of lawn mowing is basically a bunch of robots the size of 48-inch, any size, they get deployed, they're mowing. You have one or two people instead of a big commercial mowing crew. You have one or two people walking around trimming with electric trimmers and electric blowers, while these electric robots are going to be moving around mowing. They load up, they go to the next property, and basically there'll be we'll call it a traffic control employees that'll basically have computer screens up and they can see what's going on. They can say, number 32 has a stick in front of it. Can someone get out there and pick it up? So and like I said, it's happening right now. In 5 years, it's going to move really fast from here, I believe. And then it's going to go into anything when does it get into snow removal? I think it's starting now, but it'll probably be a little slower to move in snow removal, I think. Just
Wow.
because it's a different, snow is ever changing. So it's really like grass grows and there's the grass, right? It's not moving around on you. And I think it's going to be a little different, but it'll definitely happen with snow too. The machines will be plowing the snow.
I mean, it's just a technology taking over now. I mean, with these Tesla cars, I mean, driverless cars, people sitting in the back seat while the car. I mean, I never even thought I would even see that in my lifetime. It's crazy.
And the company I'm working with, I mean, the people they keep adding to their team, I mean, they're some of the brightest, some of the biggest brands that have been working in this segment in other industries are now seeing the green industry as a huge opportunity. So I would say a lot of the people that have been in autonomous driving for the last 10 years, say for one of the big, auto brands, are now running to this industry going, oh, it's a startup. It sounds exciting. Let me go over to that industry. So, because we have almost zero autonomous, operations. The closest thing I would say to autonomous other than mowing is you could turn off your irrigation system from your phone, right? But other than that, we really were pretty far behind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I never in a million years would have thought that, okay, robots are going to be mowing the grass and I don't have to worry about it and I can walk around and trim. But that's an interesting development. I mean, we see that in the weather industry too. A lot more computer models coming online, a lot more computer generated forecasts. But we do see some problems with that too. Like a lot of people have different types of apps. A lot of times the apps might give you the wrong start time on Snowfall or what it may be. So I still think that the meteorologist is very important to the whole situation too, because look, those computers are going to spit out what they're seeing. They're going to do their best job, but there's not actually a human, looking at that radar, making the ground truth of where that snow's falling, when it's going to get there.
Hey, look, you're still always going to have the annoying customer like me that calls, hey, what do you think? You think pre-salt's going to get washed away? Well, Zach, I don't want to tell you what to do, but you still need that. I'm still that person that you need both, right? So I think ultimately technology it's an accelerator. What can technology take out of the human side? And then at the end of the day, humans need to continue to work on their people skills because that's where so your softwares are going to continue to streamline things for you, but you guys are going to have to still be really good at doing a great voice video to your customers, right? So that human side of it's still going to be there. So it's just going to twist us and make us focus on people more, believe it or not, which is weird. People think it's the opposite, but I think hey, if I can stop, talking to John about tire tear, but I can go talk to my customer about planting more flowers. I mean, that's really what, the shift that starts to happen. And we won't, if I employ 10 new robots in the next year, I may hire less people, but they're not lined up outside anyway. I will not be letting anyone go. That's the difference. My staff will just get redirected. So I think if you guys think of it the same way, you guys have been deploying more software, but you're not employing less people than you were 4 years ago at WeatherWorks, I would imagine. So
No.
I'm more worried about that robotic lawnmower I might buy in 10 years that does my backyard, and like I can't enjoy my beers. Well, I didn't do anything. There's nothing like getting done with
yeah,
your.
there's going to be no reward feeling. You're going to feel guilty. Your stomach's going to get bigger,
Yeah.
and you're going to feel more guilt.
All right. Hey, Zach, before we let you go, there's one more thing that we wanted to talk about, and I didn't realize this until I, looked you up and looked at some of the things you're into. But there's something called Urcher clothing that you've been getting into lately. What's that all about, by the way?
So I believe it or not, before I got into landscaping, I wanted to be into apparel, believe it or not. And because I was a big skier, I was kind of into like high-tech ski gear, and I was a mogul skier, so I was thinking of starting like a line that would just be for mogul skiers, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got into a trade, push mowing grass, right? So I started my company, and 20 years later, which was about 3 years ago, I said, no, I'm gonna do basically a lifestyle brand, which is Urcher, stands for urban nature put together. I have a trademark on the word. So our definition of the word Urcher means urban and nature spaces coexisting in harmony. As I bring in some partners, we start talking about lifestyle brands are very a common thing, right? You can find a million lifestyle brands out there. But what we started noticing is a very big need for landscape and farmers apparel. So you have Patagonia, say, and you have Carhartt, but they're two totally different extremes. So as we start to look at like specific stuff we wanted to make and develop and invent, we said, whoa, that's really big. Let's hold off. That takes a lot of capital. We start to see a big major pain, which is at every one of these companies to keep your employees in a fresh shirt and keep the inventory and make that streamline where they have all their PPE gear and clothing and they all look professional. It's a very hard task to keep up on. So what we're designing is a platform to be able to basically accommodate any size company, and where employees at their fingertips can get what they need when they need it. So for farmers and landscapers, we'll fill in with tree and other industries, but really just working with the landscape industry first because that's what I know. So that's that. Some other things kind of in the works on top of that we're talking about, but ultimately it's to supply, and we've got a couple of our first customers, and so it's kind of starting it out like I did with a push mower. It's not a big grandiose launch right now. It's more of a organic bootstrap hand over hand process right now. So thanks for
Yeah.
asking though.
No, it seemed really interesting to me, and hey, maybe you can make some meteorologist clothing
Here's the
out there.
number one thing. I think employee uniforms in this industry, even the snow, all of it, are so underlooked. I mean, we throw snow guys $39 day glow jackets that as soon as they get rained on, they get wet and cold. I just feel like the landscaper's uniform is so undervalued. When if you're going mountain biking, you'll see, you're just getting into it, but you'll see how quickly you start buying the good gear. Like you'll be like, oh, that's a nicer wicking t-shirt or whatever it is. And if you're a big hiker or any sports, but here we are kind of looked at as industrial athletes in the outdoor work environment. And we really don't put people in that grade of clothing and that high performance of an item. It's kind of like cheaper is better. Like if I can get a $9 t-shirt for my guy, then I'm happy because I want to keep my costs low. And we think it's got to be really the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I have a million t-shirts from my old landscape company that they're just regular cotton t-shirts. They're nothing like the cool gear you get from Under Armour or anything like that.
Right.
And then I got my own Carhartt jacket for when it was cold and I was shoveling or whatever I was doing or plowing, and Carhartt coveralls. But it seems like you're going much deeper into that, for everything, and I appreciate that as a former landscaper.
Yeah. And I think we'll be a voice for the employee, and most owners and managers or so whoever's in charge of the financials at a company don't want to hear like, hey, you need to spend $600 to $800 a year on your employee, and they're going to go, what? Our budget's $250. So, but if they're happy and that's what drives them to go to work, I mean, basically you're in the environment all day, whether it's hot, cold, rainy, snowy, and if you're hiking or having fun in that, you spend the money. So why wouldn't we be doing the same thing for the team in the front line? So
100%. I mean, I have my bike in the shop right now, getting on new tires and new
oh yeah,
brakes,
spend
because
away, right?
because I gotta tell you, the ones on there now are shot. The brakes are done, and this guy's hooking me up with some really nice gear on it. So, but yeah,
Same for you guys. Maybe we'll offer you great jackets one day. No, I mean, you guys are in the element some days if you're doing live stuff, I would imagine, right?
yeah, like those guys in hurricanes and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but other than that, I think we're pretty much wrapped up here, Zach. I really appreciate you.
Hey, I'm gonna give the weather guys a plug. So whenever someone argues, oh, these weather guys, they just get the only job you can have and get it wrong. I'm just gonna say, and what are you going to go by if you don't go by what they say? Are you seriously going to try to make the prediction?
You know what? A lot of times I get, oh, I'll just look out the window. I'll stick my head out the window. That's the comeback that comes a lot of times. But I'm with you, Zach. I want to. I like the.
And the way I'm being your cheerleader on that is because as the owner of a company, I can get a lot of like, oh, they got that one wrong or whatever it is, and I'm always saying, guys, like, what else do you choose from? Pick a couple, compare how you would like, but at the end of the day, they're doing a much better job than we would ever do because we just look outside and go, oh, it's snowing. We better get our plows on. So, I always give it to you guys, and I know that you guys, you have to have some pretty thick skin, I would imagine, to be able to take the criticism you can take at times.
Yeah, we do, and I do appreciate that.
It goes along with the territory of anything else in life. I mean, if you can't take a little criticism, then it's a part of life, and I think that's kind of the issue today. I mean, I don't want to get political again, but it's the way it is today. I think there's a lot. I mean, when I was on TV doing weather a long time ago, and I'll tell you, the criticism over was way more than the hey, great job and things like that. Same thing, even in any industry, you're going to get yelled at for certain things. Take it, you learn from it, and you move on. Other people just don't take criticism very well, and I think that's what's happening in our society today. It's just afraid to really learn from anything.
I wish, I don't know if you could go back 30 years and see how they predicted weather to then compare it to today and see like how many times they got it right and wrong, I'm sure people would go, oh, I should keep my mouth shut.
Most of the times, but then you have the old timers that are out there and say like, "Hey, my forecast was better 20 years ago." Now, come on, now let's be real. Maybe your perception of it, but beyond that topic, I think that about wraps it up. And
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you for your
have
time
to
again, Zach.
I'll have to get you and Brad talking because I know you're on TikTok too. I saw a few videos.
Oh, geez. Well, now that I'm a new dad, I'm a new and first dad. It's all just my daughter. So I don't.
Yeah. But Brad's been talking about getting WeatherWorks on TikTok, and I'm like, Brad, I don't know. And then he's like, I got that idea.
When we start getting back to the office, I think it'll be a little bit easier. So we're gonna have a game plan for that. But I think
It's kind of this scary or the fun part about it is it's probably the only one you should be on. That's what's crazy about it. It's like everyone has a spot on there, and it's not, it's an incredible platform.
It is. No, it is.
Thank you a lot for being on the show here today, and I really appreciate you
thanks.
coming out. So that's about it for the Weather Lounge, everybody. Remember, we'll have a new episode every 2 weeks, so please come and check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, basically wherever you can find your podcast. The Weather Lounge is on there. And also, don't be afraid to shoot us an email, weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com. If you have any ideas for the show or any comments, you can certainly drop us a line there. And as always, visit us on social media. We are WeatherWorks, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, not TikTok yet, but very soon, I think, if Brad gets a plan together for us. And that's about it for our show for this week. So thanks everybody for joining us.